What's up, wrestling fans? Two Bros Wrestling Show, not snow. I think that's supposed to come later this week, though. What's happening, Kevin?
A little bit late, but some audio issues that we've worked our way through. So apologize for the delay, and hope as everyone's had a great week and a great Thanksgiving. We are here tonight to talk about the Thanksgiving tradition that is Survivor Series. We had a whole
Mm.
show that we PLE last night that we're going to review, Doug.
Yes, we did. And much like Thanksgiving dinner with those family members we only see once a year, we probably could have done without it, but we'll get to that in a minute.
I think we just got Doug's capsule review. We'll give you the full preview after we hit
Go.
a little bit of news to start us out for the week. I want to start this week with Y2J. We've not seen Chris Jericho on wrestling television since he lost the ROH
Nope.
World title to Bandito in April, but he's obviously been a very hot topic as to where we may see him next. Um, it's really looking like it's WWE. I know we've been
Very
saying that
much
for a
so.
while.
Yeah.
Very much so. The Wrestling Observer is reporting that Jericho, in fact, has an offer from WWE, that they have pitched him a storyline that is a retirement storyline.
Hmm.
Nothing is confirmed. Obviously, when asked about it, Tony Khan mentions also being interested in doing business
For
with,
sure.
AEW's first ever world champion. Of course, he
Right?
is. But the ball is definitely in Jericho's court. It sounds like he can pretty much take whatever offer he wants.
Hmm.
If you were in Jericho's shoes, what would you do?
Take the money and run. The body's only got so much time on it, and whoever's got the best offer, the kid with the most monopoly money is going to win here. So,
And we know who that is, despite all the money that Tony Khan has. And I'm sure if it has a WrestleMania match attached to it, a Hall of Fame induction,
mhm.
perhaps, there's going to be a lot of carrots that WWE
Yep,
can dangle that Tony just doesn't have.
absolutely. And, Jericho's time to pass the torch and start working with younger talent is definitely there. So, you know, it would be
Makes a
cool to
lot
see
of sense.
Jericho. It'd be cool to see Jericho back in WWE. It'd also be cool to see Jericho, end his career in AEW just to give them a nice milestone. But I think we know where this is going.
And we will keep everyone informed when it is official as to where it's going to go. Your move, Y2J. Moving on to someone else we've talked a lot about over the last month, and that is Andrade El Idolo. Man, during an interview this past week, Andrade further put himself in the headlines when it comes to this whole contract dispute he's having. He's claiming, anyway, that he and WWE are working on an agreement to get out of this 1 year non compete clause. Further, he
Mhm.
confirmed that WWE only activated the clause after he appeared on AEW TV, and that Andrade himself had thought he was completely free and clear of his deal and was doing nothing wrong. In this same interview, Andrade also addressed his wellness policy violation, and what led to his dismissal, the way he described it, was essentially there's supplements and medicines that are fine to take in Mexico, but just not north of that Mexican border.
Sure, sure there are.
So
Sure.
take all of that with a grain of salt. Obviously, we'll keep you informed as this continues to progress. But here's one more little wrinkle to the story that never seems to run out of them, and that
Mhm.
is Andrade, in a different story, suggested that his legal issues with WWE may be result of him. I want to see your expression, Doug, if you've heard this part of it or not.
I
Is the
haven't.
result of him using a lawyer with WWE that was actually the lawyer of his ex-wife, Charlotte Flair, indicating that this lawyer may not have had his best interest at heart.
Why? Why do you do? Hey,
Yeah,
Andrade, I know a guy. No, it's fine. It's fine. He represented Charlotte, but it's fine.
that I could not believe that he apparently used Charlotte's divorce attorney in his proceedings with WWE. Yeah,
Maybe
Andrade,
maybe he
they
got
may
really
not
taken.
have.
Maybe he really got taken to the cleaner, and it's like, hey, this is the guy I want to have on my side from now on.
It just keeps getting weirder, honestly. The more this story unfolds, the just stranger and stranger it gets.
Only in
Um,
professional wrestling.
Only in professional wrestling. That's another story we'll keep fans up to date on. The first two stories we've opened with are ones we've had multiple times, and I imagine not the last we will have either of them. Doug, this next one is one that I hope maybe we would have an end to, but the way that there's a number of titles in AEW,
Oh
probably not.
no.
But we're about to have another world championship showing up on AEW television soon.
Okay.
If you haven't heard, Claudio Castagnoli defeated Gran Guerrero at Arena Mexico on Friday night to become the new CMLL World Heavyweight Champion, ending Guerrero's reign that lasted more than 3 years. So congratulations to Claudio.
Wow.
That's a
Wow.
big, yeah, that's a big thing.
Okay, that
Obviously
is a huge
CMLL,
thing.
that's the, but it is, but you've noted before, and it's true, there's so many titles that you forget the fact that
Hmm.
ROH's world title is a world title. Takeshita's walking around with a world title, and now you're about to have a Death Rider showing up with a world title.
Because and how many world titles does Mercedes have from like 1,000 different promotions now? It's a big deal to drop your world championship to an outsider. No, when that's a big deal, right? That's a lot of faith in this outside company, this outside person from another promotion.
Yeah.
But AEW is walking around with what? The New Japan title, the CMLL title, 1,000 women's titles, and
ROH.
ROH title.
Yeah. It's
It
a lot of
just
world champions for one world.
really it is.
Let's just stay south of the border for a moment with this next story as well. WWE has announced a new AAA media rights deal, and that is beginning in 2026. AAA will now be broadcast on Fox in Mexico, Central America, and South America. AAA content, which includes PLEs such as Triple Mania, will air across a variety of Fox platforms, including the Fox channel on Tubi, the Fox Pay TV channel, and
Ooh.
the video on demand service Fox One. This is the first significant media rights deal that WWE has made on behalf of AAA since they acquired them earlier this year and brought them under the TKO umbrella. No word yet, though, on a potential United States broadcast deal for AAA. I have figured that has to be in the works and coming soon.
I would hope so. Yeah. Unless they just plan to continue to lean on YouTube and run things for free, which I'm cool with.
Hey, man, I'm real
Since
cool with that. Even though I've watched the last two, not understanding a darn thing that was being said, but I
right,
still watch.
but that's okay. Yeah, that's
Kind of
fine.
fun. Speaking of AAA, a good segue to talk about Penta. If you watched Raw this week, you saw Penta versus Solo Sikoa in the Last Time Is Now tournament that was stopped by the referee due to an
Hmm.
injury to Penta. Penta landed badly on his left shoulder after hitting a hurricanrana to the outside right before the commercial break. Coming back from the break, the medics were still working with Penta, and the ref called it and declared Solo the winner. It seems as if though Penta and WWE dodged a bullet. Updates are that the shoulder have been
Uh,
it's positive, won't cost him time away. While the match was scheduled to go longer, the injury
hmm.
apparently did not change the outcome.
Right.
Meltzer is reporting that Solo was booked to win this one and go over. It is good that Penta isn't going to be out for any significant amount of action, as Penta is reuniting with his brother Ray Phoenix to
Yes.
appear in
There we go.
AAA versus Dirty Dom and El Grande Americano at the AAA event on December 20th.
There we go. That's some good stuff right there.
Very good stuff. Here's a common story. AEW is making scheduling changes due to WWE. AEW will not go head to head with John Cena's final match on Peacock, as they'll
Good
air
call.
Collision earlier in the day on December 13th. Collision that day will air at 4:30 p.m. and will emanate from Cardiff, Wales. In another programming note from AEW, the December 17th edition of Dynamite will be followed by an hour of Collision and a 1 hour World's End preview for a 4 hour block of AEW on TBS on the 17th of December. Doug, you better start resting up now. That's
I
a lot of
really.
wrestling all at once. Hey, but
Wow.
I completely understand why. I mean, it has not worked out well for them in the past. Obviously, this past week was really telling. AEW preferred to run a tape show on Thanksgiving of all things, as
Hmm.
opposed to face Survivor Series last night. which you think
Yeah,
would be a better slot than one of the major American holidays. But that's how badly they must do when they have to go head to head with WWE
yeah.
PLEs.
Of course, it seems like it's WWE that's always changing their programming at the last minute. So now they're going to preempt their shows to go against, these AEW shows that have moved.
Sometimes you think that they are just messing with them. It really does
Hmm.
feel like some trolling from time to time.
Absolutely.
The legendary Ric Flair got himself into a bit of hot water
Oh,
this week discussing another legend. I see you're shaking your head. You heard about what he said
yeah.
about Hulk Hogan. Flair
Oh,
was on a
yeah.
podcast where he claimed it was street drugs that led to Hogan's death because Hogan's
Not
doctors wouldn't prescribe him any more medication.
not street dogs, street
Street
drugs.
street drugs are almost as dangerous.
Almost. Almost.
The stir that caused obviously required old Slick Rick to make an apology. Well,
Oh,
it's
and what
Rick.
an apology it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Rick. So it's a half-hearted apology where he basically said he didn't mean for folks to misinterpret him the way that we all did, and that he had respect for Hogan and that all wrestlers find themselves in need of pain medication. That part, sadly, has got some truth to it, but he still
Hmm.
said what he said. And oh, Rick.
Just which is pretty much his apology. I said what I said because that's what really happened, but it's not
Yeah,
I don't mean it in a bad way. Okay, Rick.
yeah,
Just stick
Rick.
to wrestling, man. Stay off Twitter and stick to wrestling.
Amen. And finally, tonight in our opening bell, we'll end after some of this negative stuff with some good news, and that is congratulations to WWE NXT talents Trick Williams and Lash Legend. The two superstars recently announced their engagement. We wish them all the best. I'll be
Yay.
honest, I didn't even know that they were a couple behind the scenes, but definitely a couple you would not want to mess with. I will say that.
That is a whole lot of power couple right there between Trick and Lash. So
For
yeah,
sure. And with that, let's get to the show that Lash appeared on. We're
let's
going to
get to
talk
that show.
Survivor Series. And Doug, as we do, we often will make sure that we don't go into spoilers if anyone wants to check us out before they check out the PLE. But I think you tipped your hat on what you thought.
I may have, yeah. I
Without
jumped the gun
spoilers,
there, but
hey man, I'm going to go with you. This just really was a skippable pay-per-view. It just
mhm.
was. Um, and we'll get into that when we talk about the matches and such themselves. But in a broad sense of things, I know you weren't able to join us last week, but
No, and
last week
thank you
when
for
I was doing,
coverage. Thank you,
hey,
sir.
happy to pitch in when needed. Um, I will say this before but like I do think that you must be dragging our previews down because the last time we previewed together, we were so horribly wrong on pretty much everything at
Dude,
Full Gear.
so wrong. So very wrong about Full Gear.
And last year I'm predicting, last week I'm predicting Survivor Series by myself, and I did a whole lot better. So that has to be your fault. I'm going to
It's
say.
I fully take that. Yeah, that's all on me.
No, man. Last week when I was doing the preview in your stead, I basically said that the traditional Survivor Series setup never did anything for me. I never cared for Survivor Series and the elimination style matches just because there were no stakes. I said that
Hmm.
I prefer what they've done the last few years, in that the very least with war games you get the spectacle, and even if there are no stakes, it makes it more interesting than just random 5-on-5s.
Right.
I still say that that is true, but I also, after watching this show, wonder if they do need some sort of stakes, because I do think that that is ultimately what bit this show, is that a lot of stuff happened and very little of it meant anything.
Very little of it meant anything, and at some points it just I think I can get away with this without being going into spoiler territory, but it just lumbered, and then it was over, and then it's like there was like some cool stuff, and then things ended, you know, or some
Yeah,
things were overbooked, and then they ended, so
totally agree. Totally agree. I feel like of all of the pay-per-views that WWE has done in 2025, this would be the bottom tier. And it's interesting because I also, in that bottom tier, I put something like WrestlePalooza. And so
hmm.
really the relationship with ESPN is off to kind of a rocky start. They have not had a
Yes, it
really
is.
great show since they made this move, which is a big move, and you think they'd be putting their best foot forward, but several throwaway shows, really.
This is one of those hell froze over situations because now I have access to every ESPN there is, which is for no absolutely no reason whatsoever. So the
For
universe is
you,
trying to
yeah.
figure that out. So it's just a paradox I've caused by doing this, and it's throwing WWE all out of whack.
Well, let's not say that it was completely devoid of good action or some positive like storylines. There are nuggets, but you can
There
get
are
that by
nuggets.
us and probably watching some highlights somewhere. You
Oh
certainly
yeah.
don't need to dedicate 3 hours of your life to it. Let's dedicate the
Mm-mm.
next 20 minutes or so talking about it. What do you say? Well, let's get into
Let's do
some
it.
spoilers.
Let's do it. Spoilers. Here we go.
So let's first talk the setup. The baseball stadium starting in daylight, going through sunset. It looked great. I really think that the setup looked great more than like your typical like just football field round oval. It just had a unique look to it. I don't know though, open air stadiums, if the crowd was just not into what was happening or the sound was escaping, but the crowd reactions were noticeably muted to me during the course of this. I know
Yes.
that's a problem with stadium shows.
It is a problem with stadium shows, but I have to say kudos to the production team for the timing because we have seen this last PLE as the sun is setting over the
Oh,
stadium.
yeah, yeah,
That's
beautiful.
you know, perfectly timed. I want to believe that was intentional, especially the callbacks to it later on where they're showing it. It just kind of worked really, really well from that, from like just a storytelling perspective. One of those things that probably a whole bunch of people just didn't even give a second thought to, but that storytelling geek and cinema geek in me is like, okay, that's really cool. But
And I'm with you. I think that that was intentional. The
mhm,
the set looked great. The crowd was primed. It's been a while since they've done like a big full stadium show. It looked like one of the big shows of the
mhm,
year. Unfortunately, what they delivered was Survivor Series. Let's talk that first
yeah,
War Games match. You have Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, and AJ Lee taking on Nia Jax, Lash Legend, the Kabuki Warriors, and Becky Lynch. Doug, no Shark Tank. We don't have everyone waiting on stage in a Shark Tank. I actually could care less about that. I think maybe it was more interesting to watch folks come out and wonder who's coming out as opposed to watching folks bicker in a tank on the stage.
I kind of like the bickering in the tank, though. It builds tension. My only guess is Lesnar said, "No, this is stupid. I'm not doing it." So they said, "Okay, the Shark Tank's out this year."
Actually, it will be interesting to find out if there was something behind that decision because it does seem like a
Hmm.
very minor thing to get rid of. It's not like you're reinventing the concept at all.
Right?
It wouldn't be surprising if it was something like Brock going, "No, I'm not going to stand there for 50 minutes waiting to come in."
Just
Um,
like Brock breaks the rules later, but we'll get to that. When we get to the men's match,
with
and then
the
commentary's got to cover it. But
Yeah, with the women's match, we start with Charlotte and Asuka, and the faces
mhm.
have the numbers advantage throughout. Io was the first to join the match, giving that advantage with a branded trash lid, by the way, which I actually thought was pretty cool.
Yes. The whole trash set, had her branded set there, but came out with the lid.
She
So
came out with a lid because the can didn't come until her friend brought it
right.
later, which was hilarious. She did use that lid quite effectively, though. One of the memorable
Yes.
spots of the match was that bullet train knee into the face of Asuka, which went
Hmm.
very unprotected. I also thought it was kind of a cool visual of Becky chaining the faces together while the Kabuki Warriors deliver those
Yes.
dueling low
Yes.
drop kicks. Um, Kari was put into that trash can and was held by Rhea in a sort of a lion tamer like maneuver until Io could deliver a kick to the can. I like that. Doug,
Hmm.
I want to know what your thoughts are on this. Everybody gets their stuff in. The very last person in, I thought was an interesting booking choice because Lash was the
Hmm.
last one out to start War Games. But it may have been the fact that we don't have a roof or what. But to me, there was very, very little reaction from the crowd when Lash came out. This was her first real match since she's been to the main roster in this latest iteration with Nia Jax. So I don't know that Lash can be held responsible for that because I don't think fans know her really yet.
I don't think fans know really yet, and I don't really think it takes something away from Lash when you have a female beast that size when you also have Nia Jax on the same team. You have these two heavies that that are there to heat the place up, but I don't
I
know.
just don't.
It seems to it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem to click booking wise to have them both on the same team.
If they had put her in a little bit earlier, even to maybe protect her from the fact that she's not
Sure.
the last entrant, it just was. I did think though that the crowd kind of woke up a bit when they just saw the visual of Lash and
Hmm.
Rhea once everyone else was down, and you see these two large women. It's not very often you ever see Rhea Ripley as the smaller person. She was the
True.
smaller person, which I
Yeah.
think Lash may not be over yet as the crowd learns who she is, but if that is a seed that is planted for later on, imagine what
Hmm.
it's like. And I think that Michael Cole even called it out. Imagine the matches that these two are going to have. I
Yeah.
100% agree that those two will one day be making big money together.
Yeah, let's get some reps on the main roster underneath her belt and get some folks to know and recognize her work and see where she goes. But yeah, I do agree. I think more than anything, it's that everybody's not the NXT fan that
Yeah,
knows who she is and what she's come up through and just the limited amount of time she's been at SmackDown with Nia. So,
yeah, it's
give it
going to take
time.
more time. Yeah, more
And
time
again,
than
I
that.
think two dominant females like that on the same team, it's like you're watching a replay of Nia Jax come out and clean house then too. So
It was only, speaking of matter of time, we all probably could have known it was only a matter of time until you know EO is going to go to the top of the cage. It actually was pretty, yeah, it was pretty even Steven,
yeah,
really, I guess we should
it
say.
was.
It was just back and forth until Asuka accidentally missed with the mist and got lashed in the face. And then after
Hmm.
that, you did get the expected of EO going to the top of the cage and coming off of it with a trash can inside of the trash can. I guess the unique take this time was how the trash can was delivered to her, which was actually kind of funny. And then, of course, the
Yeah,
impressive swanton looked great. You get everyone down except for Becky, who then has to take everyone's finisher and end up in a submission by AJ. So winning
yep,
war games in this one were the faces. To me, Doug, this one was slow in spots, good overall, I suppose, for what it was. But as we noted at the start, this was one of those there are no stakes. And there's just no getting around it. However fair or not fair it is to be compared to the blood and guts match the women in
oh,
AEW put on, but just proximity means that there's no choice but to compare the two. And there really is no
hmm.
comparison between that match on free television and what WWE delivered last night.
That's exactly what I was thinking because totally unfair. And every time one of those matches is on, I say I'm not a fan of these like, trash matches, these garbage matches like that where there's all these like bloody spots and everything. But I can't help but go, okay, there was no color in this match. There was, where poor Sky Blue has a crimson mask from like, minute two of the match and goes the entire hour or whatever, and it just was not, the two matches could not have been night and day different. And I think you're right, no stakes in it, no nothing, and then everybody gives Becky their finisher, and then AJ gets the submission, and we're out.
Yeah. And
Good
then
for, I mean,
starting tomorrow on Raw, nothing has changed or been affected
right,
by what happened in
right,
this match. There
yeah.
really isn't even much in the way of storyline planting either that I could really
Mm,
discern. It wasn't like some major. I mean, unless the whole Oscar Lash Legend thing
right.
that, but I don't think that there's enough meat there to hang anything on. I don't know. It just
Mm-mm.
was there, which is a
Yeah.
tough thing to say for the fact that you had such talented people working as hard as they did.
Such talent. Absolutely. Absolutely. Every match, every person in the match, with the exception of Nia Jax, one of my favorite female wrestlers in that ring. But
Yeah. This next one, I think if you watch one match on this show, I'm going to say watch this
watch this
match.
one. Yep.
And this was the Intercontinental Championship match with John Cena, the champion, defending against Dominic Mysterio. the last Cena PLE match defending the IC title in
Hmm.
Dominic's hometown. I was interested what the crowd reaction would be for this because of that. And yes, there were
Yeah.
definitely like some Dom support, and you could hear it, and there was some back and forth. But that very long dramatic pause to tease out Cena's entrance,
Uh-huh.
and then it became apparent as soon as that music hit, this was going to be a pro Cena crowd despite Dom's popularity. No matter what, no one's booing Cena in this one.
No, and I really wonder if that was a production trick, working a bit of early psychology before the bell even rings to, okay, they're behind Dom right now. Let's make them wait. Let's make them wait. Let's make it uncomfortable now. Okay, now cue music
I
and
have
let
to
them pop.
I gotta say, man, I have never been the biggest Cena fan, but I am so enjoying this last ride. They just done it so
Mhm.
well, and there does appear to be genuine peace when you look at the
Mhm.
man and watch him interact. Well, one, he's enjoying himself, and two, he seems totally happy with the way he's going out. And so, I mean, I loved it right from the entrance of him making, him playing with Stu there, the cameraman for the last
Uh-huh.
time, just talking to him a little more, talking to the fans personally and stuff. It just everything about it, there was good vibes going. Even despite the fact that Cena was in Padres colors, and as a Dodger fan, I had to hate on that. Although I did love the fact that there was one guy very obvious by the stage who was completing his completely dressed in his Dodgers World Series gear and even had a flat, large cutout version of himself with a Dodgers hat on. I'm like, all right, man, that guy gets it. Rubbing it in to the enemy.
I don't know the words you just said, but I'll trust you. Although I have every ESPN, so if whatever sports ball you're talking about, you ever want to watch, come on over.
By this time next year, you'll know exactly what we're all talking about. This
All
was
right.
John Cena's 177th PLE appearance. I love that they give that sort of historic context. The early story of this one was the Judgment Day ladies at ringside giving Dom the numbers advantage. Uh, Dominic messed up a Hurricanrana attempt on the barricade early on, hit hard on his head and shoulder. This delay allowed the
Or
women to,
or did
oh,
he?
did he? So if he was truly playing possum the whole time, that was pretty amazing because that botch looked legit to me.
It looks so much like what just happened to Penta. So it's a
Exactly.
beautiful callback. And this is why I say Dominic Mysterio is professional wrestling. He is. The man is like the Undertaker, where he's always in character, doesn't break kayfabe, and can do things like this. Because I'm saying total work the whole time, not not
Yeah.
not a legit injury. Cena's in on it because Cena ends up basically power bombing him. It looks so much like
I
what
mean,
just happened to Penta. So
typically,
it's a great callback.
if you typically have these worked shoots where
Hmm.
it's a legit injury, it's usually either obvious or they don't show the replay. When you see that replay,
Right.
it's like,
Yes.
okay, did Dom intentionally land on his head for the sake of
Uh-huh.
this spot? Because it looked like it was a true like move gone wrong. And it did allow the women to get in the ring and hit their moves on Cena, which kudos to Cena for selling for Roxanne Perez
Yes.
and the Pop Rocks and stuff, which actually is just great. We get
I know.
multiple 619s and then the frog splash after Dom's trickery. And then, of course, some reversals. There was the attitude adjustment that gets a kick out. We get the first "This is awesome" chance of the night, and maybe the only time all
Hmm.
night that chant was even warranted.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but the women get themselves kicked out. We get a ref bump. Then the male members of Judgment Day get involved, and then things get real tricky during all this chaos. We get
Yep.
Liv Morgan. Uh, I thought when she came out, it's like, okay, they're going to tease this out, and this could go either way booking wise. But they did
Hmm.
make her return mean something as she gives a slap to Dom, which maybe she thought he deserved, or maybe it was a ruse. Either way, she had other plans for Cena too, which was a callback to Cena's turn
Again,
on.
beautiful
Yeah.
storytelling because I call back to that turn, which worked out terrible. So let's hope Dom and Liv work out better than that Cena Hill run did.
Well, it definitely is going to be a longer term storyline than John Cena's Intercontinental title run because
Hmm.
he will not be retiring with the Intercontinental title, nor will he be defending it in his final match. all this leads to Dom regaining and Cena having an out. Although at this point, does it even matter if Cena wins or loses? It's just this ride that we're on with Cena, and as you saw from the crowd reaction afterwards, it's like they're just happy to see John Cena one more time.
Yeah, one more time, exactly. And yeah, I think you nailed it. Like neither one of us has been very appreciative of Cena over the years to the point of annoyance and disgust at times in the past. But I like you. I'm enjoying this. Really love the beginning of the heel turn, but yeah, we'll talk more about that. What next week?
Oh yeah, we're going to go deep on it next week.
Yeah,
As for this match, man, I thought this was just a lot of fun. I thought it was a great
yeah,
use of Liv. And
yes,
and to save her return for this moment, it's also kind of John Cena goes out of WWE with a 100 win PLE record. That's actually cooler than 101. You won 100 times on pay per view, and I guess this means he lost 78. But only the Undertaker, they made a point of saying, has
right.
more PLE victories than John Cena. This was a fun one, and the fact that Cena in his final PLE match puts over Dominic
Hmm.
Mysterio. I think that's something that should be pointed out as well
Oh,
as just
absolutely.
a cool thing for John to do. I'm sure at this point
Yep.
could call his shots, and this is something that I'm sure. I mean, dude probably was there, with Dom on his knee at one point in time backstage.
Hmm.
If you go back, so I'm sure there was a reason why he wanted to make sure that the kid that he knew way back when gets set up for what the big future Dom has in store.
Absolutely.
Doug, we go from my favorite match of the show to probably the one that it really was the one that could have been just your average SmackDown contest instead of a PLE contest, and that is the Women's World Championship where Stephanie Vaquer took on Nikki Bella. I think this one was it ever in doubt? Is that why the crowd just didn't react?
I don't know. Yeah, after this match was over, my 10-year-old son turns to me and says, I don't know what I just watched, but I feel like I need to go wash my eyes now. And I'm like, I feel you, buddy. I feel you. So, I mean,
That's hilarious. Um,
yeah.
in my notes, I guess the first thing I had is the fact that because of the positioning of this match, I'm assuming that Nikki and John passed each other at Gorilla, which I guess at this point everybody's cool with everybody. But
Yeah.
um, after the emotion of that last match too, I think the placement of this one just made it very difficult for these two ladies, honestly, to even
Hmm.
do much, even if they had more of a storyline. I'd honestly would have preferred more of a squash where we had Vakir,
Yes.
um, just a lot more offense than Nikki than I would have liked. At this stage, Nikki really shouldn't be able to
Mm-mm.
hang with Stephanie the way that
She
she
should
did.
not.
Not
No.
at all. The
Uh-uh.
Devil's Kiss spot on the table popped the crowd, put Wade in
Nice.
a
Very
Barrett in
nice.
a
Yep.
good one-liner on Cole, which led to a Devil's Kiss in the ring, a beautiful corkscrew splash from the top for the
Yep.
win. Some decent spots, but this was a TV match overall.
Totally. Yeah. Unnecessary on a PLE. And
Which leads
just
us to our main event, and that was CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, the Usos, Roman Reigns in the War Games contest against the Vision, Drew McIntyre, and Brock Lesnar. The main event War Games match started with CM Punk in his Larry's dad jacket, which was kind of funny. Against
hmm.
Braun Breaker, the heels had the advantage throughout this one. I think that does work better because
It,
it's so unfair to have an advantage that it just makes more sense that the faces are in peril and
exactly.
the heels are cheating.
I think that's one thing that didn't work with the females because
Yeah,
I mean the baby faces need to fight from underneath, and the
yeah.
heels having the advantage. And I was thinking about this after McIntyre comes out, you've got Braun Breaker and Drew McIntyre. Now I think of CM Punk as a guy like in average physical shape. I mean, I don't think of him as like a premier athlete. He's
It's
not
also
like
in his
he's not
50s.
buff. Right, 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 right. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, his cardio may be better than yours, but I think of CM Punk basically being in the same physical shape that you are. You obviously have less tattoos. So, but then I'm thinking, you in the ring or anywhere, a back alley, anywhere with Braun Breaker
Yeah,
and Drew
let's no.
McIntyre, what a mugging that is actually going to be. And then I'm starting to work really hard on my suspension of disbelief at that point, real hard.
I would not last very long against one of those men, much less both of those men. I did think it was storyline wise, considering
Mm,
the storyline between Drew, that history between Drew and
mm.
Punk, that it made sense that
Yeah.
Punk was the first at a disadvantage. But the fact that he
Mhm.
didn't just get demolished during that entirety
Yes.
of time didn't make as much sense to me. But he did
Yeah.
get the standard spot that you have to have in one of these where two men javelin one man face
Mhm.
first into the steel cage.
Okay. Yep. Got to get that. Got him some
Cody,
color. Yeah. At least
well,
there was
yeah,
color
that's
in
what I
this
was going to
match.
say. At least this Punk did a blade job, which I actually was glad to see after the first match had no color whatsoever. Even though it did stop pretty fast, it wasn't exactly AEW
Hmm.
style bleeding. It was,
No.
very minor cut, and then 3 or 4 minutes later, you couldn't tell anything had happened. Cody had a very memorable entrance by coming up over the top and leaping from the top of the cage.
Hmm.
One early storyline of this that might have given it to me a little bit of an advantage over the women's match is the fact that maybe we did get a storyline plant in that at first Cody and Punk were not getting along and had
Hmm.
to build some trust. So that's a matchup we have not seen that
Yep.
could be on the horizon. A doomsday device, though, put Breaker on his neck in what might have been
Dude,
the
I
scariest spot of the night.
I thought I immediately, because I didn't watch the men's match until today, so I immediately pick up my phone and start Googling, is
Yeah,
he okay? Because I thought for sure the dude had snapped his neck right then and there, the way he landed. That looks so just terribly messy.
and I imagine if his neck wasn't like 3 feet wide, he probably would have. I mean, a
Right.
normal a normal human with a normal neck would have not landed that way without some serious damage. It probably the muscularity around his upper
Hmm. Really?
torso and neck region probably saved him from serious injury. It was ugly looking. I did appreciate that it was a callback to Road Warriors and the fact that they were in the very
Hmm.
first one of these, but it still was a very scary looking spot.
It just looks so terrible. I mean, I
Yeah,
thought the kid had legit like ended his career like then and there. Then 2 minutes later, he's doing Frankensteiners. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
he's fine. Never mind.
Which just you can't take that for granted. Just how good those always look, and I mean it
Wow.
looked great inside the cage as well. Jimmy made his entrance to a pop by getting tables involved. That woke some folks up. Cody Cody cuts himself open as well, so we get more blood. So now we have two people bleeding. Again, I appreciate the fact that it's a War Games match. We should have blood,
Hmm.
but much like the
Agreed.
CM Punk cut, it didn't last terribly long or was not terribly gruesome, which I guess is fine. Maybe somewhere between what AEW does, where it's just like buckets and people drinking it, and like
Right.
paper
Yeah.
cuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's find some middle ground. There's no one doing the middle ground right now.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, and like you said, it is war games. So come
it
on.
is War Games. If you're going to go there, you have to go all the way, right?
Yeah.
I did like when
Absolutely.
Bronson Reed entered that he just went nuts delivering tsunamis on
Yes.
everyone.
Tsunamis
Um,
for everybody.
I didn't go back to check this or time this, but did it seem to you that the women's match had like 5 minute gaps between entrances and the men's were like 3 minutes and then you'd see 3 minutes up there and then 3 minutes would go by, but there wasn't anybody out there and they didn't have the countdown going. And it just felt like they played pretty loose with the concept of the timed entries.
It kind of reminded me, as far as that goes, where it kind of reminded me of in AEW when they were like, the first two people start out, and then 5 minutes later, the next person will enter, and then sometime after that, the next
Random.
person will enter. Yeah, and that kind of
Yeah.
kind of became what it was.
Yeah, it
So,
was definitely fast and loose with that timing. Um, we got a cool looking 1D by the Usos. I like that. Roman, of
hmm.
course, was the last man to enter. He begins on the outside with Lesnar. and
Yeah,
they fight on the outside for a
because
while.
Lesnar exits the cage after them making a big deal about it. If you lose, your team
Yeah,
loses if you exit the
you're
cage.
disqualified. Yeah, yeah. If you exit the cage, you're done, is what they'd said during the women's match,
Yes,
and then Lesnar left the cage and was not done.
and then and then of course they're like, well, the bell hasn't rung yet, so technically War Games hasn't started. Okay, cool story,
It's the
bro.
Brock it's the Brock Lesnar rule. He did get
Yep.
a F5 on Roman through the table before I guess the match had started officially.
Right.
The match itself
Wait,
was had its moments. It was fine. We get a mystery man who comes in over the top. Doug, let's talk about the mystery man because that
it
mystery
was me.
man,
I did. That was me.
it makes more sense to me now.
Yeah.
Doing your best Seth Rollins impersonation.
I practiced
Um,
that for a really long time to get that low, like kick, and then do the curb stomp like Rollins does. Practice that a lot, probably for months since thought I was going to be in the Vision when Rollins was still running the Vision, but things have
But
changed.
that's it. Rollins not running the Vision any longer. So
Uh
does
huh.
it make sense to tease that it could have been Seth? Because why would Seth be helping the men that?
Right. Why do you tease that it's Seth when when you go against the Vision's opponent? It's like
Yes.
what are you doing? I can
If
see.
it was the other way around, maybe.
Yes, makes sense
But I
then.
mean,
But
it's
why?
not Seth anyway because Seth is legit out because of his surgery. So
Mhm.
someone is taking Seth's moves, and maybe there'll be Paul will be able to jujitsu this into like some sort of like, oh, now that makes sense. But why they would pretend it was Seth when Seth would obviously not be on their side, unless they're
Mhm.
going to try to pretend that everything's okay and that
It's all
Seth's
been a
coming back.
work. Yeah.
I don't know. Paul did sort of lead to the end by handing the brass knuckles to Logan Paul. Uh, he gets him taken away from a man who you would not want to have brass knuckles because his big
No.
move is a punch. So Superman
Right?
punches to everyone. Did lead to maybe the best spot of the match where Lesnar gets a spear by Reigns through the table with the man on his shoulder. So, he's in the midst
Yes.
of the F5. That looked cool. But yeah, it was actually that mystery man and that sort of led to the end for things. And that made the finish where the breaker hits a spear. The heels win this one because they saved the last match and did the faces first with the women. Yes, the men's match I think was a tad bit better because it was just a little crisper and there was a little bit of more storyline development with the mystery man and the Logan Paul association and maybe the tease of Punk and Rhodes. So maybe there was a bit more there with the men's match, but the crowd did not care for the heels finishing this
No.
thing.
No. Again, maybe it was the stadium. Everything just went straight up. But it seemed to me that the crowd cared little for most of this PLE overall.
Yes.
Is
I mean, you had that first match where the last person out is someone they don't know well, so they don't react. You
Mhm.
have the women's title match where people didn't care so much. This one you had them caring because it was star studded, so for that reason it
Mhm.
deserved to be the main event. It was more of a spectacle, not honestly still not as good as the men's blood and guts match from a couple of weeks back. And
Mm-mm.
not only were there no stakes, but at the end the heels go over on a night where the only thing the crowd really cared about was seeing John Cena, and John Cena didn't go over, so they didn't have a whole lot of reason to be happy.
Yeah, they
The
weren't deflated,
46,000 people.
and I really think that that men's match ended. I think we've been almost programmed to expect false finishes, especially
Yeah,
off screwy things like that, where there's a mystery man that enters and does some damage, then splits. So the Hills get a cover, and it's a 1, 2, 3, and 3 point or 2.9999 before somebody kicks out.
yeah. I kind of kept waiting at the end of this to see if, like, okay, there's going to be a post-match angle that sends the crowd home happy because you had three of the biggest names in the sport in the ring,
Hmm.
kind of teasing tension,
Kind of,
but
but
then nothing really happened.
it seems like, Punk and Reigns kind of agree to be cool with each other, but Cody's kind of being like the odd man out, being a bit persnickety, let's say. And Reigns is just, what is it Reigns says when he's leaving? This is the last
This
time,
is the last time we'll
we're,
ever team again.
yeah. So,
And I'm like okay.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's if that's your big payoff at the end, it's a pretty minor one.
Hmm.
No punches thrown, no real tension, no real reason for Cody there was nothing throughout the course of the match that would set up them being mad at each other at the end, but Punk being like cool with everybody for some reason. So
Yeah.
not a lot of it made any sense. So I mean, overall, I gotta say this kind of a thumbs down pay per view for me, and I don't give many of
Yeah.
those, but definitely a skippable one.
It's definitely skippable. I think you can catch everything on probably the WWE highlights channel on YouTube somewhere, and you're good.
Yeah, and hey, you're good right now. If you've watched us,
Absolutely.
you pretty much know what you need to know, and that's it.
Yes. You know what you need to know, and that's it. I like that.
And that's it for us too.
Man,
Let's get that big finish, man.
man, 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 man. So let's start with Botch. And I got to say, there's
Yeah,
so much that could be said. And I like to keep it themed when we do our reviews of PLEs and pay per views. So I will stay within the PLE and the pay per view. But as far as a botch goes, just like right out of the gate, War Pigs is playing, right? War Pigs, a classic Black Sabbath anti-war, anti-establishment song about, the establishment sending youth to war. And then we talk about how we're in San Diego, birthplace of California, all these different like military bases are,
we're playing War
men and
Pigs.
women, this, and they're playing War Pigs, and then straight into this corporate like battle zone that they've created where they essentially are sending people to war. Just such a botch. I mean, it's like, Reagan using like Born in the USA as his campaign song back in the day. Do some research. Yes, it's a cool song, but come on.
Oh, it's the
Come on.
coolest of songs, but yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, this is just a weird juxtaposition, or show the folks and show the military stuff, and then go into the song. But to have them both going on at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm like, what message is that supposed to send?
And
It
having
was it was odd.
these troops on like the aircraft carrier and all these sailors marching as war pigs plays in the background. No, stop it. Just
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. Make sure they're using Fortunate Son, and they're going to just see if that works better. I don't know. Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. Actually, I am going
Oh,
outside of the pay per view for the botch of the week only because I just can't not, even though it's been talked to death at this point. We have to talk about the Brock Lesnar Shockmaster moment on Monday night and the mess. I mean,
yeah.
it's just you cannot get enough of watching that on replay. The giant man who maybe should not even be back on our TV screens. You can
Right.
certainly make
Yeah.
the argument that this is a fail and a botch on WWE's part by even including him in their proceedings right now. And then to watch him just fall and then try to laugh it off by putting a cowboy hat on Braun
Yep.
Breaker's head. It just everything was just too hilarious, but total Shockmaster vibes there.
Yep. Total. That's a good one too.
I'll go back on track for performance and match of the week though, with sticking with
All
the pay
right.
per view last night.
So performance, I first have to give a shout out to AJ Lee's Mighty Nine shirt when the girls are coming in. So shout out to that. That's, I almost gave that my performer of the week because this was just such a rough pay-per-view to get through.
Yeah, it was.
But Dirty Dom delivers as always. I don't know how many times Dom has been my performer of the week, but here he is again. And let me just go ahead and give you a 2-in-1 because I do this most of the time when Dom's involved anyway. And say match of the night here, match of the week for me coming out of this PLE, Dom and Cena. Because Dom delivers in that lie, cheat, and steal kind of way that only Eddie before him could do. And Dom is, I say this every time, the future of the WWE. It's going to be just a great ride for Dom in general. So, and especially Sean, Cena giving him the shine that he did and putting him
Yeah.
over like that in his hometown. Good stuff all around.
And performance of the week, I could definitely go with Dom also, but since you called him out, I will go and say EO Sky for adding to her
All
real
right.
tape
Yeah.
of impressive looking cage jumps. I mean, we knew it
Yep.
would happen. We knew she'd be in a trash can, but they found a way to make it unique enough from the others that it still was incredibly impressive and doesn't feel like it was repetitive because of some of the added little twist to it. And it was great. Match of the week, I can't go with anything other than what you went with because there was nothing else on that pay per view that could
Mhm.
even come close to being a match of the week contender. Now, was this the AJ Styles versus John Cena like
Oh,
the
no.
farewell to? No, it wasn't that kind of work rate. There was definitely better work rate matches this week. But if you just want to talk
Mhm.
about a fun match that accomplished a lot, this was the most entertaining match of the week. John Cena versus Dominic Mysterio recrowned Dom, brought back Liv, had John finish his WWE PLE career with a even 100 record of wins. And for Cena to do the job for Dom is a definite passing of the torch moment. So there was so many things at play that make this match greater than the sum of its individual parts. And sure, was it full of shenanigans and outside interference and typical trickery at this stage in John Cena's career, and for the heel that Dom is, where it's lie, cheat, and steal, every bit of that worked in the context of
Mhm.
this match. It was definitely my favorite match of the week.
Yeah, and speaking of context, I just want to throw this out there. Not necessarily a match, but maybe a performance of the week. Actual honorable mention I should throw in there because this I saw this in with absolutely no context. It just popped up in a video feed of mine earlier today, where I see Joe Hendry, Jeff Hardy
Oh,
sitting in a TNA ring. Joe Hendry has a guitar. I don't know
yeah,
what the context was behind this, but they duet "My
just saying.
Sacrifice" to
Yep.
like a taping audience that looks like maybe the audience is just filtering in or has already left me with the hangers on because it's not a full arena. I don't know what the context was, but seek this out. It's entertaining, if nothing else. Joe
Yeah,
Henry, Jeff Hardy covering Creed in a TNA ring.
the things you never think you would see, but that is this business, right? The
It
wacky
is
world of sports entertainment, which, by the way, is a pretty good segue for things you never thought you would see, and that is next week's edition of the Two Bros Wrestling Show, our final show of the 2025 season before we go on a holiday break like we do every year. But for our Christmas special, Doug, we are giving the gift of something we never thought we'd be giving, and that is
right.
appreciation. And the timing of it, right before John Cena's last match, we're going to talk everything about this final run, about John Cena's career, and about whether or
Hmm.
not, now that he doesn't have the Intercontinental title, should he win, should he lose? We will go over all of that because we should know by next week who his final opponent will be. So there is so much John Cena appreciation in our special Christmas show.
So
If you're
much.
watching live, that is YouTube, 8 p.m. Eastern on a Sunday night. But however you watch us, we appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think.
All those things.
One more show of the year, and we hope you join us for it.
Until then, go watch some wrestling, y'all. Good night.